Hi, welcome back to Grow Through English podcast. I'm Tom. In today's episode, we're diving into a fascinating article about how artificial intelligence, or AI, is changing the world of medicine. Imagine a computer model that can predict what kind of diseases you might face in your lifetime, even before you feel any symptoms. Sounds futuristic, right? Well, that's exactly what a new AI model called Delphi 2M is trying to do. We'll break down this article sentence by sentence, explain the plain meaning in simple English, and look at useful key phrases you can use in real life. So grab your notebook, relax, and let's explore how AI might transform the future of healthcare while growing your English skills along the way. This is part 1 of the article, covering sentences 1 to 20. And by the way, if you want to read the full article yourself, I've put the link down in the description so you can check it out directly. Let's start. Sentence 1. A new AI model can forecast a person's risk of diseases across their life. Plain meaning, the article says there's a new artificial intelligence model that can predict what kinds of diseases a person might face during their lifetime. Key phrase, forecast a person's risk, means to predict the likelihood that someone will experience something in the future. Example, doctors can use data to forecast a person's risk of heart disease. Sentence 2. Delphi 2M can predict which of more than 1,000 conditions a person might face next. Plain meaning, the model, called Delphi 2M, can estimate which specific illness a person is most likely to develop out of over 1,000 possible diseases. Key phrase, conditions, refers to different types of medical problems or diseases. Example, diabetes and asthma are both long-term medical conditions. Sentence 3. Much of the art of medicine involves working out, through detailed questioning and physical examination, which disease a given patient has contracted. Plain meaning, a big part of a doctor's job is to find out what illness a patient currently has by asking questions and doing physical exams. Key phrase, working out, means figuring something out or finding an answer through thinking or effort. Example, it took the scientist years to work out the cause of the problem. Sentence 4. Far harder, but no less desirable, would be identifying which diseases a patient might develop in the future. Plain meaning, it's much more difficult, but still very valuable to know what illnesses a patient might have later on. Key phrase, no less desirable, means it's equally valuable or important, even if it's harder to do. Example, learning slowly is no less desirable than learning fast, as long as you understand deeply. Sentence 5. This is what the team behind a new artificial intelligence, AI model, details of which were published in Nature on September 17th, claims to do. Plain meaning, the scientists who created the AI model say it can actually do this, and they shared their research in the journal Nature on September 17th. Key phrase, claims to do, means to say or assert that something is true, often before it's fully proven. Example, the company claims to offer the fastest internet speed in the world. Sentence 6. Though the model, named Delphi 2M, is not yet ready for deployment in hospitals, its creators hope it could one day allow doctors to predict if their patients are likely to get one of more than 1,000 different conditions, including Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and heart attacks, which all affect many millions every year. Plain meaning, even though Delphi 2M is not ready to be used in hospitals yet, the scientists believe that one day it could help doctors predict if their patients will get any of over 1,000 diseases, such as Alzheimer's, cancer, or heart attacks. Illnesses that affect millions of people every year. Key phrase, deployment, means putting something into real use or operation, especially a system or technology. Example: the software will be tested before its full deployment in schools. Sentence 7. In addition to helping flag patients who are at high risk, it might also help health authorities allocate budgets for disease areas that may need extra funds in the future. Plain meaning, besides identifying patients who are more likely to get sick, the model could also help governments and hospitals plan how to spend money better by seeing which diseases might need more funding in the future. Key phrase, flag patients, means to mark or identify certain patients for special attention or monitoring. Example: the system automatically flags patients with abnormal test results. Key phrase, allocate budgets, means to decide how to divide and assign money to different projects or areas. Example: the government allocated more budget to healthcare this year. Sentence 8. The model was developed by teams at the European Molecular Biology Laboratory, EMBL, in Cambridge and the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg. Plain meaning, scientists from two research centers, one in Cambridge, EMBL, and one in Heidelberg, worked together to create this AI model. Key phrase, developed by, means created, designed, or built by someone. Example: the app was developed by a team of engineers in Singapore. Sentence 9. It takes inspiration from large language models, LLMs, such as GPT-5, which powers ChatGPT, that are capable of producing fluent prose. Plain meaning, the model is inspired by large language models like GPT-5, which can write smooth and natural text, just like humans. Key phrase, takes inspiration from, means to be influenced or guided by something else. Example: the artist took inspiration from nature to design her paintings. Sentence 10. LLMs are trained to spot patterns in enormous amounts of text scraped from the internet, which allows them to select the word most likely to come next in any given sentence. Plain meaning, large language models learn by studying huge amounts of text from the internet. This helps them guess which word should come next in a sentence, based on patterns they find. Key phrase, spot patterns, means to notice or recognize repeated structures or trends. Example: children can easily spot patterns in songs or rhymes. Sentence 11. Delphi 2M's creators reasoned that an AI model fed on large amounts of human health data could have similar predictive power. Plain meaning, the scientist believed that if an AI could learn from a huge amount of health data, it might also be able to make strong predictions, just like a language model predicts words. Key phrase, reasoned that, means to think logically and come to a conclusion. Example: she reasoned that leaving early would help her avoid traffic. Sentence 12. In many respects, the design of established LLMs was well suited to the task. Plain meaning, in several ways. The structure of existing large language models already fit this new medical prediction task quite well. Key phrase, in many respects, means in several ways or from several points of view. Example: in many respects, living in the city is easier than living in the countryside. Sentence 13. One major tweak that was needed, however, was to teach such a model to account for the time that had passed between events in a patient's life. Plain meaning, but the researchers had to make an important change. They needed to train the model to consider how much time had passed between different health events in a person's life. Key phrase, tweak, a small change made to improve something. Example: the designer made a few tweaks to improve the app's layout. Sentence 14. In written text, consecutive words immediately follow one another. The same is not true for diagnoses in a patient's history. Plain meaning, for in normal writing, words appear one right after the other. But in medical records, Diagnoses don't happen right after each other in time. Key phrase, consecutive, means things that come one after another in sequence. Example, she worked for 5 consecutive days without rest. Sentence 15. High blood pressure following a positive pregnancy test, for example, requires different interpretations depending on whether the two are separated by weeks, in which case the pregnancy can be affected, or years, plain meaning, for example, if a patient has high blood pressure after a positive pregnancy test, the meaning changes depending on whether those two events happened weeks apart or years apart. Key phrase, requires different interpretations, means needs to be understood or explained in different ways. Example, the same behavior can require different interpretations depending on the situation. Sentence 16. This adjustment was performed by swapping out the part of an LLM that encodes a word's position for one encoding a person's age. Plain meaning, the researchers made this change by replacing the part of the language model that usually keeps track of where words appear in a sentence with a new part that records a person's age. Key phrase, swapping out, means replacing one thing with another. Example, she swapped out her old phone for a new one. Sentence 17. It wasn't without mishaps. In an early version of the model, new diagnoses were sometimes predicted after a person had died. Plain meaning, the researchers faced some mistakes at first. For example, the early version of the model sometimes predicted new diseases for people who had already passed away. Key phrase, wasn't without mishaps, means there were some problems or errors along the way. Example, the trip wasn't without mishaps. We lost our luggage at the airport. Sentence 18. Delphi 2M was then trained on data from 400,000 people from UK Biobank, a database that contains arguably the world's most complete human biological data set. Plain meaning, the AI model was trained using information from 400,000 people whose data are stored in the UK Biobank, which is likely the most complete collection of biological data in the world. Key phrase, arguably the world's most complete, means many people believe it's the most complete, even if some may disagree. Example, Paris is arguably the most beautiful city in Europe. Sentence 19. The model was given the timing and sequence of ICD-10 codes, the international medical shorthand doctors use to register officially recognized diagnoses, representing the 1,256 different diseases that appeared in the biobank dataset. Plain meaning, the AI received information about when and in what order each medical diagnosis happened, based on ICD-10 codes. The system doctors use worldwide to record diseases. The data included 1,256 different diseases from the biobank. Key phrase, ICD-10 codes, a global medical coding system used by doctors to classify and record diseases. Example, doctors use ICD-10 codes to organize patient records in hospitals. Sentence 20. The model was subsequently validated on data from the remaining 100,000 people in the biobank before being tested further on Danish health records, which are famously long-running and thorough, plain meaning the model was checked for accuracy using data from another 100,000 people in the UK biobank, and then tested again with Danish health records, which are known for being detailed and covering many years. Key phrase, validated on data, means tested or confirmed using a specific dataset. Example, the new tool was validated on real-world data from several hospitals. This is part 1 of the article, covering sentences 1 to 20. That's the end of part 1 of our article about Delphi 2M, the AI that can predict over 1,000 diseases. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Grow Through English podcast for more real English learning through stories and news. See you in part 2.